Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Potts, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar, which is titled Insights, Impact of Economic Development. On behalf of Nevada State Bank, I'd like to welcome you to the webinar, which is presented through nevadasmallbusiness.com. I'm the Research Director at the Governor's Office of Economic Development, also known as GOED. Our office was created by the Nevada Legislature to promote a robust, diversified, and prosperous economy. I'd like to thanks for joining us as our panel shares insights on economic development and how it offers a win-win situation for both businesses and the community. And first, I'd like to introduce the rest of our panel. On my immediate left is my colleague, Lindy Cichon. Lindy is the head of our Procurement Outreach program, which is part of our GOED. Her program is charged with providing counseling and technical assistance to Nevada businesses trying to obtain government contracts. Next to Lindy is Mike Kazmierski. Mike is the president and CEO of the Economic Development Authority of Western Nevada, also known as EDAWN. Mike has extensive experience in economic development and has been a huge asset to the state and has a lot of interesting and helpful ideas that I'm sure he's going to share with us for the rest of the hour here. Next to Mike is Jonas Peterson. Jonas is the Chief Operating Officer for the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, LVGEA, formerly known as the Nevada Development Authority, or NDA, here in Southern Nevada. Its mission is to develop the Southern Nevada economy through regional cooperation, global trade, and global connectivity. We have a Twitter feed, so if you have any questions for the panel, please submit them on Twitter using the hashtag NSBWebinar, and we'll get to those questions as they come in. So without further delay, we want to kind of move into our program here. I'd like to put everything a little bit into context and talk a bit about economic development and what it is kind of at a textbook definition so that we have kind of a ground floor to talk from. Essentially, what economic development is all about is how are we going to go about creating wealth for the region, and how do we bring more money in that's coming out so that we can have higher paying jobs and higher standard of living, and that's the whole point of what we're doing here. And what we've learned over time that government and community leaders can be very strategic in prioritizing how they go about making that happen. Economic development kind of takes three different forms. There's attraction, where we try to get companies to move here to relocate to Nevada. Retention and expansion of existing businesses, which speaks a lot for the constituency that we're talking to today, as well as startup businesses and helping businesses that are in formation trying to get going here in the state and add to our economy. The whole point behind economic development efforts are geared to strategically grow our economy to its highest potential. And there's a whole series of thought that goes into that process. At the end of the day, we want to provide a business climate so businesses can be most profitable, because what happens when businesses are profitable, jobs follow, the job creation happens. And that ends up being the metric that we use to measure our performance and how well we're doing, is what we're doing on the job front. The idea that we go into as we put together and formulate our strategies and our priorities is to figure out where we have a comparative advantage here in Nevada. Obviously, tourism, gaming, and entertainment is a big one in the urban areas, and well, across the state, but especially in the urban areas, and mining up in the northeastern part of the state, and it's migrating to other parts of the state. But there's other areas where we have a comparative advantage as well. It's in those sectors, in those industry sectors, where we have a comparative advantage, where we have the opportunity to bring money into the state. You always want to look back and find out where does the money come from, and that's what we call our primary industries. Primary industries create what we call primary jobs. Those primary jobs are the focus, they're the highest and best use of what we can do as far as creating wealth for our community and growing the whole state and the regional economy. Other jobs that come in, or other jobs that are part of the state, are equally important to us, but for different reasons. They end up being the jobs. Once the money enters into the region, you have a churn of the money that goes around that has to, so have industries like health and medical or construction or retail. those kind of jobs, those are what we call secondary jobs, but they become very important because they create the infrastructure and the supply chain that we use to leverage our primary industries, and it ends up ratcheting up the economy as a whole. So it's the whole plan is to, as we deal with this an economy that's in its formative stage, how are we going to grow it to its highest and best potential? And that's the point of what economic development is in the state. And that was kind of where we came into Governor Sandoval in June of 2011, signed into law Assembly Bill 449, where the whole point was to have a very strategic approach to economic development in the state. We found that after the Great Recession that we couldn't just build it and they would come, that we had to have a much more of a strategic plan in how we were going to approach our economy and our and grow in our regions. Part of what was in AB 449 was to reorganize statewide economic development and make it a cabinet level position in the governor's office to provide funding to help do things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do, to modernize economic development work here in the state, and to help launch the regional development authorities. The point being, what we want to try to do is create a vertical integration from the local economic development offices through the regional development authorities to the state, and have, there's places and there's priorities for each one of those organizations and roles that they need to play so that we can really be effective and efficient in the work that we're trying to get done. In coordination with the AB 449, there was a study that was conducted by the Brookings Institute and Stanford Research Institute to talk about where are our opportunities, our threats, our weaknesses, our strengths. And this is very much a summary of a very comprehensive study that went into work, but they identified 7 sectors in that study where we have a comparative advantage. Of course, tourism, gaming, and entertainment was one of them. Mining, of course, is one of them. But added to that were aerospace and defense, information technology, clean and renewable energy, health and medical, logistics and operation. And since then, we've added 2 more sectors that are absolutely key to the economy here in the state, one of them being agriculture and the other one being manufacturing. And manufacturing is we've seen some huge opportunities in the past couple of years that have come to our state. So with that, I think that what we want to do is we kind of want to open up the conversation to the rest of the panel members, and I'll kind of lead that out. I've already talked a little bit about how the state economic development operates and what our priorities, but I'd like to turn it over to maybe Mike or Jonas, whoever wants to go, and let's talk a little bit about what RDAs do and how we work with you guys.
Well, let me start off by first saying EDON, the Economic Development Authority of Western Nevada, manages the economic development activity and coordinates what's going on up north. In the Reno, Sparks area, there's an NDA, which is in Carson City, that we work in partnership with. And we're one of the 9 regional development authorities the state works with. And we are really the region that connects back into the state. So we're really part of that system, but we're the boots on the ground part that works with local governments to do what needs to be done to grow the economy. So our focus is really threefold. First, as Bob mentioned, attracting quality companies. So we're on the road, knocking on doors and encouraging people to look at Northern Nevada as a place to do business. For us, a very strong focus on manufacturing. As Bob said, that was an area of additional focus by the state, but we're finding many of our prospects are in that area. So attracting companies has been very successful. Our pipeline is full, and we've had quite a few announcements in the past 6 or 8 months. So things are moving in the right direction on attraction. Then the retention is the second leg of economic development. We have a retention expansion team that's visiting and working with the existing industry to help them grow. Again, knocking on doors, visiting with executives, and helping them solve problems or encourage them to expand, at the same time getting leads for other potential expansion components. So it's the retention side is very much in addition to the attraction side, but we're helping companies grow. And that's really where Nevada State Bank and other partners in our team are working with us to help these companies invest and expand. And finally, the third leg of economic development is the entrepreneurial development piece. And that part is a little fuzzier, but it's how do we help companies really get up on their feet and start a business. And we, as Bob mentioned, work with primary employers. These are companies, mostly technology companies, but companies that have customers in other places. That's a kind of a simple definition. Most of their customers are outside the region, so they bring wealth into the region, and we are helping them in many ways, but of course capital is one of their needs, and so us working with our partners to get them capital and mentorship to allow them to grow in our region is a big part of that.
And the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance is the regional development authority for Southern Nevada. We're structured as a 501c6. We also have an arm that's a C3. We've grown rapidly over the last year, basically doubled in size, where the community has told us that they want us to become a much larger community and economic development organization to serve Southern Nevada. We are guided by two strategic documents, and I think there'll be links to both of those at the conclusion of this webinar. The first is a comprehensive economic development strategy. This is a regional document about how not only the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, but partners throughout Southern Nevada can move forward on a common economic development agenda. And then our internal strategic plan as well, which takes our priorities from the regional comprehensive economic development strategy and puts them into an action plan for the upcoming year. So you can see clearly what we fund as priorities, where the activity is, and ultimately a full set of performance metrics that the community, our investors, stakeholders can all expect to be achieved. Our funding is primarily from the private sector. In fact, about 60% of it now comes from investors that believe in the mission of regional economic development. Investors like Nevada State Bank that have stepped up and said, hey, we want to be a part of that team to grow the economy together and to support economic development work.
Lindy, would you like to talk a little bit about what the Procurement Office and how that helps local businesses?
Yeah, so the Nevada PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, is the program that I'm a part of at GoEd, and I think two of the words that have been thrown around quite a bit already are growth and expansion, and so where we fit into that is trying to help any Nevada business who's looking to grow and expand into the government marketplace, help them understand the process, the opportunities there, and how to succeed in those efforts. So from a kind of just national perspective, the federal government's the largest single buyer in the world, really, the U.S. government. $500 billion spent every year. Of that, about $2 billion was spent in Nevada, so that's money coming into our state from all sorts of various agencies. We want existing Nevada businesses to be a part of that as much as possible. The state of Nevada spends another $500 million every year, so in and among federal agencies, state agencies, and all of our local government agencies, it's really a huge opportunity for businesses to get involved. And there's a process, and there are sometimes a lot of rules and regulations that you may not be aware of if you have only been operating in the private market up until now. So our role is to help businesses understand what that means. And of course, the government as a whole represents thousands of potential customers. So you got to narrow it down, figuring out which agencies, which bureaus, which departments are the right fit, and then how to really develop a targeted marketing approach and to capture some of those dollars that the federal government is spending here in Nevada, and then also outside of our state. So for Nevada businesses that are capable of performing federal projects anywhere in the United States, referring them to those opportunities as well.
So I think that one of the things that everybody is asking is how does diversifying the economy benefit Nevada small businesses? You want to touch on that, Jonas?
Sure. What I think is important to reinforce is that leading economists through the Brookings study, through other target industry analyses have been done around the state, they'll tell you that our highest and best growth opportunities come in those target industries that you mentioned. Some of them are traditional, like we've focused on and had the benefit of growing in the past, but many of them are kind of new opportunities for Nevada. In Southern Nevada, it's business IT ecosystems, it's technology, renewable energy, healthcare, life sciences, logistics, warehousing, distribution. Unmanned aerial vehicles is kind of the latest one that's been rising to the top. When we focus in on those, we have a chance to diversify, and there's a lot of benefits that I think pass through to all kind of sectors of our economy. Probably at the top of that list is the ability to, we're a classic example of the boom-bust cycle for the United States, right? Nevada is known for that. If we can eliminate some of that risk and through diversifying, help that small business owner to be able to weather those bust periods a little bit easier if they're not quite as severe, that's the beauty of diversification. Also provides opportunities to go out after multiple customers on multiple fronts rather than just a limited number of industries. So when you diversify, you have a chance to move forward on more fronts simultaneously.
Well, I mean, diversification is the way everyone should be working their 401k. I mean, it's just smart to have the ability in an economy to weather the storm with different target industries, some that will go up and some that will go down. We have had all our eggs in the gaming basket for decades, and it's been very effective in this state. We've been the highest growing state for quite some time, but in 1978 there was only one state that allowed gaming. There are 38 now, and overseas gaming is much more aggressive. So the competition for gaming is very real and has caused a drain in our visitors coming to the state when they can do it in their own state. That clearly is something that is trending in the wrong direction if we keep all our eggs in the gaming basket. It allows us now to say, okay, that was a good ride. It's an important part of our economy now and will always be, but what else are we doing to broaden out and diversify our portfolio, if you will, of economic development activity? And by bringing in manufacturing, which is coming in very aggressively in the north, the UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicle program, and autonomous systems are tremendous growth industry, gives us a lot of potential long-term. Advanced manufacturing, which is robotics and things like that, brings in technology. We start to diversify our portfolio in a way that we will be successful regardless of what happens in the global or national economy.
And similarly, when we talk about diversification in our program, we're talking about diverse revenue streams. We're talking about not having all of your customers be from one sector. So similar lines of thinking, but from the perspective of the business who's going after a government customer, let's say, diversifying amongst multiple agencies between government sector and private sector will help mitigate some of those risks as they come down, as budgets change, as different things happen in the economy. If you have revenue coming in from a variety of different places, you are going to be doing better in multiple areas and maybe not as affected by some of those changes.
Well, I think the other day that you and I were talking, and you found there were two companies in Elko, the kind of mining center of the universe, not only in the state, but in the world at a lot of levels. Two companies that you didn't know that existed, you've been able to assist.
Get federal contracts.
Yeah, grew their programs.
It's not just mining, but they've used their mining experience and performance track record to then be successful in vying for federal government contract opportunities. So that kind of public-private mix of performance is a very good thing in the eyes of contracting officers, and certainly, I think for the business owner, you can understand how that diversification is a positive thing.
Well, one of the things that's part of my job description is to keep track of the stats, right? Keep track of the performance metrics. I mean, that's really key to what the legislature and what the governor's looking for, so that we can track what we're doing and we see once if we're doing the right things, we need to adjust things, tweak things a little bit in what we're doing. Mike had mentioned how much manufacturing has played into the work that we've been doing over the last year, and the numbers played out. I've pretty much got all the 2013 numbers put together for economic development statewide, and right now 36% of the companies, there's 134 companies that we've assisted in 2013. Announced jobs, and this is on the conservative side because we're trying not to speak out of turn on this. We're looking at roughly 5,000 jobs, and that's again on the conservative side. If we talk about build out, if everything goes the way that we expect, it could be as many as 11,000 jobs just from the work that we've done in 2013, which is really huge. But of those 134 companies, 36 of them are manufacturing companies. Manufacturing is just paramount to primary industries and trying to bring wealth into the economy, and how we can actually build up on what we're trying to get done with economic. It's working. It's been really a lot of fun.
I agree, and I think that is one of the kind of the big messages that that we want to get out there to the general public, is that this new structure, led by the governor, AB 449, in partnership with the regional development authorities, but also the local economic development groups as well, it's working. Not only are we turning out amazing results, and if you, I mean, you compare us to nearby states, the performance here, we're going into the role of a leader in the Southwest, where we should be. I know at LVGA, our deal flow is up 30% from this time last year. At the state level, you're seeing kind of, you know, annual doubling in deal flow. There's just great things going on, and the level of engagement from the state, regional, and local level is at an all-time high. I mean, I talk to people pretty frequently, and they say, you know, we're just blown away by how well everybody's working together, and that, you know, we're moving forward on these projects together, rather than trying to compete, or, you know, using that old model that didn't serve us so well.
Yep. Success stories up north, Mike.
Well, it's a team effort. I like to say economic development is a team sport, and it's not just the private industry working with what we're doing. It's our university up there and the education institutions. The community colleges are aggressively changing programs to meet the needs of existing industry. Our universities are bringing on programs like the UAV certification piece program. They're bringing on board to help us attract companies that are important in the area. And then our local governments are knocking down barriers to expansion and growth. They're making permits quicker. They're reducing costs. They're expediting process along the way that allow for business to be successful. And it gives us something to sell to these companies when we say, well, we can turn that around in 30 days, and it's taken them 3 years where they are. So we are, as a state, and top down, I mean, the governor is very involved in our programs, has talked to many of our prospects over time, and is actively engaged in economic development, as is all of the GoEd staff. But we work this thing as a team, and as long as we're working as a team, I think these results will continue.
So I talked a bit about the stats that I've been putting together, and it's quite interesting to me as I look at you know, what defines a small business, and specifically existing small businesses here in the state, and how are we benefiting those. The number of folks that work in the companies that we're showing up is about, the average company size is 39 employees. This is what we do, right? And this is where we get the low-hanging fruit to make progress forward in this diversification effort, because the smaller companies are so much more nimble to be able to do some of the things that we need to do, that we find that's where in many ways our niche are. Now we're getting some larger companies, medium to large companies in as well, and those are, you know, of course they're always welcome. But the heartbeat of what we're doing is in this 38 employee range job. So small business, how are we helping existing small businesses in the state? You guys are on the ground, you get that better than me, so.
Sure. You know, so there is a new program that's going to be rolled out. Well, let me back up a little bit. So on a monthly basis, economic development practitioners from throughout Southern Nevada meet. There's about 40 of us. We get together. It's called the Economic Development Advisory Group for Southern Nevada. That team works on attraction, business recruitment projects. Together, we're forming a legislative agenda we're going to push on as a team of economic development professionals, and we're rolling out new efforts. One of those that hasn't been kind of formally announced yet, but you'll see coming out of this Economic Development Advisory Group, is a regional retention and expansion program called BizConnect. And the point of BizConnect is to have multiple organizations all reaching out to the business community, extending the resources that can be provided by the public sector or private sector organizations as well, making sure we solve problems, identify those issues, growth issues and obstacles early on, plan together as a region so that we can create the best possible operating environment. I think, you know, The people watching this webinar over time will hear a lot more about the BizConnect program, what it means in particular to small businesses, and we're looking forward to a kind of a robust rollout of that effort.
We have a retention expansion team that's been operating now for nearly 2 years. And they're out there knocking on doors. Nancy McCormick leads the charge on that. She is our lead VP and has personally visited nearly 300 businesses. And what we find in visiting those businesses, and I've been out there with her as well, we're finding the heartbeat of what's going on in the community. We're finding their needs. We're assessing where we can connect business to business or partner to business. So if there is a capital need, we can identify it and help people connect and allow for an expansion, which hopefully will add jobs to the region and grow the economy. So it's very much an engaging process that we have as part of our attraction, retention, entrepreneurial development piece. That's the main focus of the retention expansion component, yet they're interspersed. A good example is I visited Kimmy Candy about a year ago. Well-known company up in our neck of the woods, and obviously candy is a good thing, so I made sure I was on the list to visit them. And Joe Dutra I sat down with him and said, why are you here? And why does this make sense to you? And so he gave us all the reasons. And part of it is, low humidity and no bugs and all these other things that you really don't think about in the economic development world. Right. It was a big deal for a candy company. I said, well, do you think other candy companies would find this a benefit? And he said, yes. I said, well, who do you know that might want to come here? And so he gave us a name and some executives, and we have since followed up, and we're starting to work that component of the lead. So you can see where the retention program is not just about keeping companies there, but helping get connections and leads to grow the economy overall. So we are finding that by bringing to these companies that we're visiting the full gamut of resources, government side, public side, they're willing to help us do our job as well.
And the definition of small business, kind of going back to that a little bit, is important in the Procurement Outreach program. For many that might be watching this today, they might be familiar with SBA size standards, Small Business Administration. Those same size standards apply to federal government contracting. And so in some cases, there are projects that are set aside completely for small business. Small businesses are not competing with large and mid-sized businesses for those projects. So it's a really important and I think powerful tool for businesses to understand that there are opportunities specifically set aside for them. And that's one of the best ways they can get into that market. Technically, we are not a program only for small businesses. Any business in Nevada is welcome to come and talk to us and utilize our resources. But most of the businesses we talk to are small. Large and mid-sized businesses in some cases have whole departments that work on proposals and procurement and things. So their capacity is much more significant, whereas smaller businesses may really benefit a little bit more from some counseling and technical assistance that we can offer.
So what is the process? How would a company get in touch with you?
So we have information, I think that's going to post there on the screen about our phone number and our email. Much of what we do is a one-on-one conversation, so we welcome anyone to please call us and tell us more about your business, how we can help you. We also offer a series of workshops in both Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada, and webinars that are of course open to anybody. So the calendar link is going to be there too. There's information there about our events as well as other small business events that are going on around the state. So come to one of our events or call us directly and we'll go from there.
Very good. So what do you guys see for 2014? Where are the opportunities? What's going on? What's happening? Is it going to? I look at the numbers and I see that from 2011 to 2012 we doubled the number of companies, and 2012 to 2013 we over doubled the number of companies. Going to do the same thing next year, 2014? What's it look like?
Yeah, some big things on the horizon in Southern Nevada. So first, we're seeing kind of a spike in deal flow, up about 30% from where we were last year. We think that's an early indicator of good things ahead in 2014. One of the obstacles that we need to address, though, along the way is the limited availability of large industrial buildings. I think it's important for everybody to know that during 2013, we had about 10 prospects that shortlisted Southern Nevada, large industrial users, right? They wanted big spaces, hundreds of jobs. And when they made it through the process, and they wanted their building sooner rather than later, existing or ready for occupancy within 3 months. For those particular users, when you're talking about 300,000 square feet plus, the product gets really limited. We need more of that just to meet the existing demand. So we're kicking off a study that should have results back in the next 50 days to try and quantify exactly what that demand looks like, because we think there's a lot of opportunities that if we could get the right product in place would generate huge numbers of jobs. So that's one thing. Another, our chairman, Glenn Christensen, is leading a charge for education improvements. Basically taking a look at what areas can we build a consensus around improving education, pre-K all the way through higher ed, better align it from an economic development perspective. A small group is kind of steering that effort, but as time goes on in 2014, I would look for many opportunities for the public, for business leaders to engage in that process and help us identify those solutions that would help improve, align our education system from an economic development perspective. And then maybe the third thing I guess that I would share is our Engage campaign. So we kicked off a capital campaign back in November where the business community was telling us, LVGA, we need you to be a much larger organization. The goals for Engage were to grow investment from the private sector by $2.5 million per year for 3 years. And we've had some companies step up in a very big way. Over the next couple months, we'll be rolling out some of those announcements and look forward to having some very good news to relay for Southern Nevada and our economic development efforts.
Well, it's kind of scary, but we think next year will be even better. And we had an incredible year in 2013, 39 companies expanded or new to the region, and over 3,400 new jobs. For us, that's a ridiculous number. I think the highest number we've had as far back as our records go is a little over 2,000. So it shows this past year has been great, but our pipeline is full. One of our main indicators is companies visiting. And that's really important because most people don't understand Northern Nevada. And when we can get them to visit and go around the community and experience why we live there and how business friendly it is and what a great environment we live in, they will decide to come more often than not. So getting those visits numbers up has been one of our main focuses, and we've moved it. 2 years ago it was 4 a month. Last year it was 8 a month. This past year it was 10 visits a month. We had 12 in December. So that kind of trend, if we can keep the visit numbers between 8 and 10, I'm pretty confident what that tells you is those are pending announcements in the months and years ahead. Keep them visiting, get them to go back and talk about what great opportunities there are in this state, and I think our numbers will continue to go up.
So when I look at the stats that come to the state, about roughly 35% of the companies, now this doesn't include startups, but if you look at new and expansions, 35% were existing companies that decided to expand. They see opportunity and so they're growing. Does that kind of fit where you guys are at? What are the opportunities for local businesses to touch base with? They may not realize what the opportunities are and what economic development agencies can provide for them as far as tools and ways to expand their company should they want to do that. Talk to that a little bit.
Well, I'll start by first saying that's the whole purpose for the retention expansion program. It's to get out there and make the connection and develop the relationship so as companies see opportunities, they give us a call and we help them if they need training dollars, if they need access to specific needs in the workforce, connecting with the education system, working through the permit process. We have all the go-to people on our team to help make that happen. So I think that's really the advantage of the retention expansion program. But again, we work almost exclusively with primary employers. So our chamber would work with the retail component. And so we work in partnership when we need to.
Yeah, I agree. So the team at EDON, Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, we're really designed to be kind of a one-stop shop for growing jobs, right? So we try and be proactive and reach out to as many businesses as we can, and clearly, articulate what we can provide, where we can add value, resources that are available. But when businesses have needs, we can be that clearinghouse, right? We can either provide those services directly, or chances are we probably know which partner to involve in the process, or where they could get some assistance.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I find with me. I mean, I get folks calling me all the time, and it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And so you end up being a clearinghouse, how to hook folks up, and who's the right person to talk to at this company or that company, or how do you get this done, or how do you move through this permitting process and everything else. And I think for the audience out there, that knowing that this resource exists to improve the business climate for folks that are here, not only folks that we're trying to attract here, is really important for folks to understand that, and that's what it's about. One of the things that I think that is just going to be turnkey for the state, and we're just at the infancy of it, is when we got designated FAA by the Federal Aviation Administration to test in its unmanned autonomous system. So it doesn't matter whether it flies, drives, or swims. If it doesn't have a person in it, that's the world that's all about. And what they're trying to do is make sure instantly we had a comparative advantage in the rest of the country. We're competing against 5 other states, but quite frankly, we own the Southwest, right? And so what the FAA is asking us to do is figure out how we're going to test these vehicles for private commercialization. But before you can commercialize them, you got to make sure they're not going to kill somebody. So that's the whole process of testing. And so I think there's a huge opportunity, and I think that it would behoove everybody to stay tuned and keep their ear to the ground to see once where those opportunities lie, because there's going to be a supply chain both upstream and downstream for all the businesses in this state. So stay tuned. There's a lot of good news around the corner, I think, on that one. That could be really a game changer for our state. And it's all high-tech jobs. They're high-paying jobs. It's pretty exciting right now. So.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a game changer. And we talk about diversifying the economy. That's a whole new industry, and a big one. Yeah. 100,000 jobs expected in that industry over the next 10 years, maybe 15,000 or so for the state of Nevada. Mm-hmm. All the buyers and suppliers. That's a big deal, and a great example of economic development in action. And
the truth is, if they test here, they'll stay here. The odds are that's what happens, right? So then they become Nevada businesses, and then they need the supply chain of existing businesses, and it's really a positive note for our state. So I think that's one of the big opportunities, in not only 2014, but into the future. So other opportunities in 2014.
I would add that I think our greatest opportunity as a state is our entrepreneurial development. We're oftentimes very dismissive of our entrepreneurs. It's 2 people. Yeah. It's a garage. They need everything. They're always want. And the reality is every company that exists just about started that way. And if we can find as a state a way to nurture those future companies so that they don't have to grow somewhere else and then we have to fight to bring them here, it's to our advantage. So we really have put a lot of energy in our entrepreneurial development component, tried to help our ecosystem be more effective, work on mentoring, work on capital access, investment. There are a lot of things that will help these entrepreneurs grow their companies here so that the companies that everyone knows 20 years from now are helped along by our economic development efforts now.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple questions coming in. This one is from Steve. What's the best way for a business owner to find out what resources are available through GoEd, EDON, or LVGEA? Do we just call you? Lindy?
Well, I think I said already, yeah, please just call me.
Okay, that's easy. Mike?
Yeah.
Please call Lindy.
Yeah.
No, obviously, if you're in the north, call EDON, and we'll help you get to the right person.
And there's local economic developers as well. In the south, the cities will have their economic development teams that are integrated into this model as well. So whether you go first to GoEd or to the RDA or to the local practitioner, you're going to get in that system, and the beauty is that we work together nicely. There's great partnerships in place, and so from that client perspective, hopefully it's a seamless integration, and they'll get the help and the service that they need.
Yeah, and I believe that we'll have a bunch of resources posted on the website. Or go to our website and find out a lot of materials from each of us, what we've been talking about here. So we have another question from Barbara. I want to set up a new Nevada company that I think will create lots of new jobs, but I need help with a business plan and with applying for financing. Where's a good place to start?
Where does she live? She lives in the north. We have a program that our entrepreneurial development VP is the connection. He also serves as the executive director of Entrepreneurship Nevada, which is a group of all our entrepreneurial agencies. They meet on a monthly basis. So he has the connection to whoever in the community would be the best resource to check with, whether it's to get mentoring, whether it's to connect and partner, whether it's to get capital. He's our single point of contact. That's where we start, and then we go out from there.
Right. Jonas?
And the same in the South. Where we can add value is consulting along the way, connecting those dots, and from the client perspective, they need financing. Well, what type would have the most benefit for them? Is it, and then making that connection. They need a business plan. Is it something we can provide directly through LVGA, or does that make sense to get a partner involved? That kind of value add that's really tailored to the client helps them get through the process with as few headaches as possible. That's our goal.
The university system has what's called a small business development center, so we refer businesses to them quite a bit, refer back and forth, especially for those that are just starting out, looking for help with business plans, and they can provide counseling on access to capital and connecting them with the appropriate lenders, be it a traditional lender or a non-traditional lender. They have those kind of resources available.
Yeah, and we've brought up education a number of times. I mean, our educational partners have been huge in this whole process, developing curriculum and doing some things. But the SBDCs are just, they really, really are helpful. So Sarah's come in and she said, what is the website for PTAC events?
It's a long link, so I don't have it memorized, but it's on the website there, I think, the link. Yeah, we actually link our calendar to the Department of Business and Industry, which is another state agency, because they maintain a calendar of small business events statewide. We didn't want to create our own calendar, so we just link from our website to their website. And it's a great resource because, again, it's any small business event, be it a PTAC event, SBDC event, or any of the many other resources that are out there. All of us know to send them our information, and they post it there all in one place.
Yeah, and we can make sure that all gets posted on nevadasmallbusiness.com too. So, another one from Tom. Is there a place where you list new contacts that you've brought in so we can reach out to them for business opportunities? Let's go for this. Go.
Yeah. So yes, one of our goals, in particular for our investor relations program, so for the businesses that are involved in economic development, we want to do everything we can to try and connect them to other investors, make that economic development model work. So there's kind of special services above and beyond for those that are involved in the system or that reach out to us. But we'll also make periodic announcements of, hey, here's the new expansions, relocations for Southern Nevada for sure in like an annual report document. But we plan on making those announcements more frequently as well. Listing them on our website is probably the easiest way to gather that information.
We publish a monthly, we call it an executive update, and any new companies or expansions we'll list in there as new to the community. So at least you'll have a heads up that there's someone new or an expansion that you may want to connect with. We also facilitate more direct interaction if you're a major investor or supporter of, obviously as a nonprofit, we don't offer many advantages to our members, but that's one we do offer. So as a member of our organization, investor and EDON, we try and help connect with the new companies on our membership base.
Okay. Another question that came in. When you're trying to attract out-of-state companies to come to Nevada, do you consider that they might be competing with companies that are already here? They get in tax incentives and we don't.
I'll take that one on reluctantly. Because we've heard that many times.
Sure.
And the corollary to that is they're taking our employees. You're bringing in a company that's doing what I'm doing, and now my employees go over there. So it is an issue when you're attracting companies. The reality, though, is on average, we lose somewhere between 2 and 3% of our businesses annually. So if we don't bring a new company in to replace those lost businesses, the economy will decline and everyone's business will be less prosperous. So what we're doing is, in many regards, replacing lost businesses through consolidations, through a business model that has become obsolete or whatever. These businesses are gone, and the employees now are looking for jobs. If we don't bring in another business to give our existing employees a chance to stay in the community, then we have a decline in our economy. So one is it's replacing jobs, and two is it's giving them potentially additional customers, not necessarily in their space. So if they're doing one thing, company A we bring in may be a competitor, but company B may be someone that does business with them.
Sure.
So they need to look at a broader perspective of how the economy connects.
Well, and you kind of mentioned Kimmy Candy. There's an example. They were okay with competitors coming in. So they complemented, it actually builds, economies of scale.
Yeah, the clustering effect, right? For
Right.
some industries,
Sure.
more so than others, there's actually a preference to be in a location adjacent to, nearby, their competitors or people that are in a similar space, because they know, A, there's a reason probably why they should be there if there's other existing firms that they interact with, but B, over time you can share and build up a common workforce with common skill sets. You get economies of scale. You can maybe look at joint buying, procurement opportunities, interactions for training, just advancement of the industry as you partner together. And so for some, it's actually an advantage.
Sure. See that often. So here's another one that came in. If the margin tax passes, how will that affect your ability to attract companies from other states? You guys want to touch that one?
I'll start by saying EDON has not taken a position yet, but the common sense approach is one of our advantages is our existing tax structure and the fact that we don't tax the heck out of our businesses. So anything we do to affect that advantage will make us less attractive.
Yeah, I think the American Tax Foundation recently ranked the Vegas metro area as like #1 in the nation for tax, corporate, personal,
Our
income
tax
tax.
climate.
Yeah, tax climate.
Yep.
Those kind of advantages, like Mike is saying, we got to protect that, right? That's one of the reasons why we're being successful. One of the reasons why we're seeing good economic activity and indicators that are pointing upwards rather than downwards. So I think we need to be sensitive on where we add additional taxes. Now, that said, I think there's broad agreement, at least the surveys that we've seen, that we need to do more to strengthen education and support that workforce infrastructure. But the margins tax would have a huge impact on businesses, and in particular, the profitability margin for many employers. So in that light, I know that a variety of organizations have already come out strongly against the margins tax. Our board is yet to take a stance, but I think you'll see more activity from LVGA as time goes on.
Yeah. Okay, there's another question. What have you found makes Nevada most attractive to businesses to relocate? You want to talk that? I mean, you've already kind of touched on one of them, the tax climate, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it depends on the business, right?
Sure.
I mean, different advantages play to different audiences, and we try and tailor approach, obviously, depending on who we're talking to. But when you run that first model and you show a business from California, what their operating costs look like in Nevada as a comparison,
Right.
or kind of pick your state, really, it usually opens up a lot of eyes and pushes that business leader to a decision point of some kind where they got to say, hey, okay, there's significant cost savings here. Now, what does the rest of that picture look like? What does my workforce look like? What kind of building would be available? Can I connect to similar industries? That whole process. But usually kind of the foot in the door strategy, at least for us, is to show some of those operating cost comparisons so that they can envision what it would look like to start up or relocate their business in Southern Nevada. But yeah, great strengths from a transportation infrastructure point of view, connection to major markets, the visitors that come through Las Vegas. The list really goes on and on.
We have, obviously, the advantages the state has that we've talked about, but unique to northern Nevada is our strategic location. If you look at the West, we're really in the heart of the West. We're halfway between Canada and Mexico. 1 day's drive to 62 million people, 11 western states. So that central location gives us a unique advantage. In many ways, the proximity to the Bay Area is secondary, but a part of that as well. So I would say our greatest strength is our location, and we haven't in the past promoted it quite as effectively as we need to. We're going with companies on the East Coast, and they're saying, well, we're looking at a distribution center in the West somewhere. And then we pull out the map and say, well, where's the middle of the West in your view? And it almost exactly point to Reno. It's like, okay, well, that's might be where you want to look. And then the advantages of workforce and cost of doing business. Proximity to the 8th largest economy in the world without being in California is a huge advantage.
Right.
So again, I think location, the strategic location is a big deal for us.
I deal with this all the time because I do I provide information as far as the workforce is concerned. What do you guys see on the ground? Do you have trouble finding good workforce for the companies that want to expand here in the state or want to move here?
I know up north we are, we're very fortunate. The workforce we have available is, if not readily available, is easily trained. Our system there is very effective at taking someone who's close and meeting the needs of the employer through the community college and getting them up to the necessary level. With a 14% unemployment that's dropped to 8 something now, there was a lot of talent running around, and so as companies have come in, they've been pleasantly surprised.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of improvements that are being made. There's pockets of excellence exist, and a lot of companies have had surprisingly positive, very positive experiences where they're looking to bring in fairly large workforce with unique skill sets, and the Founded in Abundance had great experience through their relocation. So there is a lot of those success stories out there.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is, Nevada constantly gets dinged for its education, right? But there is a tier of folks, they may not be at the but there's a wide band tier of folks there that is really qualified to do a lot of different things with the critical thinking skills and the knowledge and abilities to do some transformation across the different sectors. And so in my experience too at the state level, we've if you look at compatibilities for different occupations and stuff, that we've really not had any issues filling seats. So Jonas, there was another question that came in. When does Biz Connect launch and how can I get involved? This is from Sarah.
Yeah, so at our next EDAG, or Economic Development Advisory Group meeting, which is on February 3rd, we are going to kind of present the final version of the Biz Connect program and get approval from that group. So we expect them to launch it in February, and then we'll have kind of marketing rollout, outreach rollout throughout the rest of the year. But please give me a call directly if you would like to be involved in the Biz Connect program.
Very good. Anything else anybody wants to add? Oh, we got another question here from Debbie. Who provides the financing for the organizations you represent?
Yeah, so for us, it's about 60% private in terms of the investment to fund our organization. I think that's what the question was. Yeah, so 60% are those private leaders, individuals and businesses that have stepped up and said, hey, I want to be a part of regional economic development. I want to do my part to move the economy forward. And so they're making significant investments in helping us achieve our mission. And then the other 40% would be through public sources.
Right.
And we're pretty much, the percentage is pretty close, 55 or so private, and that numbers has gone up pretty significantly, and then obviously state and local municipalities. So it's a great public-private partnership, and if you look at the numbers nationally, a 50-50 mix is the best way to go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Lindy and I, of course, were part of the state, right? And so there's things that we provide that help you guys out, help the RDAs out, help the EDOs out, but we don't even get involved on the ground like you do and have some of the flexibility that you do, but we have other assets that we can provide as far as legislative and policy issues that we get involved in. this past legislative session was, I think, it seemed like every other bill had economic development written into it. And so we really get to be involved as part of helping with the climate, the business climate for the businesses in the state, and we're always open to talk to folks about that. So.
And PTAC is also federally funded, so the state and specifically GOED is our host agency, but we receive most of our money from the federal government. It's a national program. There are PTACs in every state, in some cases more than one. And so we are, I think, lucky to be a part of this national network of counselors who are all, kind of trying to do the same thing in supporting businesses and working with our government agencies, and really being able to share best practices amongst one another, and helping businesses, whether they're looking at federal government, it's expanded into state and local agencies too, and kind of pursuing different avenues between all those different types of agencies, but with that federal funding kind of umbrella.
So in our office, in the Governor's Office of Economic Development, we have the Procurement Office that Lindy is director over, but we also have the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is for the rural areas for HUD money. We also have our global office where we really try to help companies in the state expand by being able to export, as well as trying to draw foreign direct investment. One of the other offices in our in GOED is the film office, and one of the big things that's hit the news lately is the film tax credit. And I know it's been a big stir in our office. It's just got on board trying to figure out how we're going to administer that whole process. I think our film office has turned into an office of accountants right now, trying to figure out how we're going to do that whole thing. How's that touched your shops, has it?
Well, I see it as a part of economic development, but not part that we focus on. It's
Right.
really the Convention and Visitor Bureau component. And if you look at that incentive nationally, we're about a little less than average as a state. So it's not a big number, but it's an opportunity. And certainly companies in California who are flying over Nevada to go do a film in Albuquerque or some other place that's offering an incentive would just as soon do it here. So it gives us a reason at least to encourage that kind of activity, which then grows our economy in a different way.
Yeah, we think there's huge opportunities that are yet to be spurred by the tax credits. If you look at what some of the nearby, this puts us in the game, right? Where we arguably haven't been before. I think there's a lot of productions that would like to shoot more in Nevada. We're close to kind of the workforce of Southern California, right, where they can fly in talent here. That's a lot easier to do that from the 30-mile zone in Southern California than it is to go to out to the East Coast to shoot. So there's reasons why filming makes sense here. There's also the productions that just want to, like in Vegas, for instance, when that's the theme of the movie, I think we should have a competitive advantage for them shooting here. Lots of room to grow. You'd be amazed though that in the past, what hasn't, Vegas specific productions that haven't shot here. It's amazing what they can do on those studios.
Yes.
Lots of room to grow, and especially those recurring engagements like TV shows. They generate, it's not just a one-shot deal. It's ongoing investment, and they spend a lot of money in the local economy. So we hope to see a lot of growth from that industry.
Well, and it's sometimes a lot more than just the filming. It's
Right.
the processing. So much of it is digital. It's the secondary industries associated with filming that we would hope to get more of a presence here. Those are technology jobs. Those are good paying jobs. So that would be a secondary effect that could have a huge impact as well.
Good. Guess what? The hour's gone. It's time to, I want to, on behalf of Nevada State Bank, I'd like to thank you guys, for this and all the valuable information that's come out of it. We hope that the folks out there that were part of our audience can use some of these ideas to help our businesses succeed. And I want to thank especially those who participated and those who submitted questions via Twitter. And we'll make every effort to get back to you with answers to your questions in the next few days. If you'd like to see the webinar again or invite others to see it, a recorded version will be made available in a few days at nevadasmallbusiness.com. The landing page there will also contain links to some of the information that we've talked about today and phone numbers and ways to get a hold of us. We'd like to invite you to register for the next webinar in the Insight series, which will air on April 2nd. It's called SBA the Easy Way, and we'll present some of the great information on SBA loans, including some unique ways to use SBA financing that you may not have heard of before or thought of before. You can register at www.nsbank.com/webinar. And so thanks again for participating, and it's been a pleasure to be here. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.